Hey folks, James Brandon here, and in this Exploring Creativity video, we're going to change it up just a little bit. With the portrait shots that we did, we were really trying to recreate some old photos and add textures and dust spots and film grain and frames and all that stuff. And in this one, we're going to scale it back a little bit. I'm going to go over some ways that you can use Analog Efex Pro 2 to also create a really clean retro vintage sort of look. And we're going to do it with this storm photo here. So I've done all of the basic Lightroom adjustments that I need to do. I bumped up the contrast and the exposure a little bit, brought in some of the highlights and shadows, and I also, bumped up the clarity quite a bit, actually all the way, so that I could really bring out the texture in the clouds here. And I also did a few other things down the line, but we're going to hop right over into Analog Efex Pro 2 here. And here we are. In the previous videos, we started from scratch with each one because we were really trying to go for a highly customized look based on the old photos that we were trying to recreate. In this one, we're actually going to try to delve into this camera kit here and see if we can find a good starting point. So the kind of look that I'm going for is an old vintage, kind of the 70s era, with those, really warm yellow color casts to them, something really warm and inviting and almost cross-processed even. So the three categories that I think we might find this in would probably be toy camera, vintage, or classic. And, just from going through these, I know that it's going to be in one of those. So let's just hop into vintage camera here and see if we can find one. I don't think it'll be there, but classic camera maybe. All right, the second one might be good. Let's see if any of those other ones work as well. I don't think they will. And I don't know if we'll find anything with toy camera. Toy camera is a lot of effects and distortion and stuff like that, so probably not in that one. I think we'll use this classic camera 2 here as our base. So that's all this is. This is our base, and from here we're going to see how we can change this photo and make it really look like what we're after. So to get back to what's being used in here, we can just go down to camera kit now that we've chosen a lens or a camera type to use, and that'll bring up all of our adjustments here, and the ones that are highlighted are the ones that are being used. And then you can go over here and see the same thing. So the first thing I want to do is check on and off this dirt and scratches. But it really doesn't look like it's making too much of a difference here. And that's because the strength, is set to 0. So if we brought this up to 100%, you'd see all those come in. We can also bring it all the way down to negative 100%, and those spots and scratches will turn white instead of black. But in this image, I don't want either of those. So what I'll do is you can just, leave the checkbox off if you want to come back to it later. Or if you really know you're not going to use it, you can come over here to the left side and just hit the minus button here, and that will click to remove the filter. So be gone. All right. The next thing I want to look at is the film type that's being used and just see if some of these other ones might work. I don't think these are going to work for the kind of look that I'm after, but probably some of these in the middle here. All right. And actually I think I like the one that it was on, this first one here. It's probably going to be between 1 and 2, but 2 is just a little bit more, washed out. And I like the purity of the colors in the first one here a little bit more. So we'll go down and we'll play with the neutral slider. And I think I actually will bump this up just a little bit. All right. Strength I think is probably fine. This is before, and this is all the way up to 100. So I think 100 is just fine here. As far as grain, I don't want any grain in this one. You could bring it in, of course, and make it look like it was shot at, like a high ISO or ASA, as it was back in the film days. But we'll leave it at 500. I don't want any grain in this one. So let's collapse that down. We're done with the film type. The next thing I want to do is the lens vignette. And if you hover over the image, you'll see where that vignette is being, or where it's affecting the image. And you can see as I move this around, you'll see that vignette kind of come in and out of the corners. So one thing I like to do sometimes is if your image doesn't call for a vignette, this is one of the bad things about Lightroom in the older days before they had the post crop vignetting, is people would just take all these photos that, you know, the subject wasn't in the center of the frame, but then they would vignette the four corners, which brings the attention to the center of the image. And it really just doesn't work that well. So what we can do here is let's bring down the amount just a little bit, and let's take the size of the vignette down quite a bit. And then we're going to reposition this where we think the subject or the main focal point of the image will be. So I think right there is going to be good. And then let's actually just bring it up just a little bit more. All right. And then we'll play around with the vignette a little bit, see how dark we can make it. I don't want to lose any detail in the corners. So probably just right there is a good stopping point. Okay, we're basically done, but we can go over on the left-hand side and see if there's anything else we want to do to the image before we finish up. I might try a bokeh on this one just to see what we can do. So again, just like the vignette, we can grab this and move it around, and we can resize it, you know, all kinds of stuff. We can mess with the transition of the blur. I think what I might try to do here, just to see if we like it, is switch over to the planar type blur, which is going to simulate sort of a tilt shift image. And I'm just going to try this. I may like it and I may not. But I'm going to try just blurring out the foreground here. All right, so I'll take the transition and make sure that we've got everything in focus on the storm. All right, I'll probably want to create a really big transition here and just watch that blur as it comes up on the horizon. All right, I'll move my mouse off the image and just see how that looks. All right, I think that's kind of a cool effect, really. We've blurred out the foreground and there's just a little bit of blur up at the top here, and that really helps to draw the eyes to the storm as well. So that's basically it for this one. This is how you can, you know, create a really clean and retro and vintage look instead of going, you know, really overboard with all the dust and scratches and textures and all that stuff, which is fun sometimes, but you don't have to always do that. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll talk again soon.